I spent some time in Indianapolis and went from Indianapolis to Columbus, Ohio. Columbus, Ohio, which is the home of Ohio State, was another city, or is another city, that I really liked a lot and had never been to. So I spent a couple of days there, and bringing Mr. Catalyst back into it, I hadn't heard from him in a little bit, and once again I could feel my heart. Like, I remember I was going out to dinner by myself, and I actually met this really nice guy. I went to dinner at the same place like 2 nights in a row, and the same guy was there, and we wound up like having like a really nice, just a nice conversation. I believe his name was John. He was really a great person, and like, I wasn't dressed up or anything. I didn't have any makeup on or anything like that. I was just myself. And I have to say, like, driving across the country and meeting people at different, like, I usually have dinner at the bar by myself, and it was really nice just to talk to people about how they lived and what they did, and what the city's like and all that. And so I was about to go into this specific place to have dinner, and forgive me because I don't remember the name of it, and my heart was just sad, and I hadn't had this feeling in a long time, like just this sadness, because I hadn't heard from Mr. Catalyst. And once again, like, I didn't contact him, but there was definitely, by this point, a knowing that I care about this person, perhaps more than I should. That's the best way I can say it, and I can't really explain it much further than that. And so, like, I remember checking like my messages before I went in to have dinner, and I saw that he had messaged me, and I felt like relief washed through my body. And I didn't respond right away, but I definitely, and this is hard for me to admit, and I'll say, in the 5 years since this time, that this hasn't happened since. And I would also say too, if you have this nervous, jittery energy, I thought that it was a sign of something significant, which it is, all right, but it's really not a good sign overall. That if a person is, their presence in your life, their interactions with you, if you're having this nervous, jittery energy, which I had at the time, in my experience, that's 9 times out of 10, that's really not a good thing. That's not how true love works. But at that time, I had a lot on my plate, and I wasn't able to isolate and analyze the situation. I didn't even think that was necessary at that point, because I just figured, I figured just my anticipation was growing to meet up with him. And as I was getting closer to Philly, like, I could feel that anxiety a little bit, because we had just been messaging for several months now, and it was just like we were on, what's so interesting is we were on 2 different planes, right? So on one plane, it's like we knew each other really well on this, on this, what am I going to call it? The metaverse plane. We'll call it the metaverse plane. We knew each other really well, perhaps a little too well, because in real life, like, we really didn't know each other at all. And so I was very aware of that discrepancy, and I was trying to kind of hold myself back, feelings wise, because I'm like, I have no idea like how this is gonna work out. And I was correct in that assumption that it was good, to the best of my ability, to kind of try to hold myself back. So as I was getting closer and closer, I was nervous and excited, because I did want to meet up with him, but I also was a little bit anxious, not only about that situation, but with other things that I was going to need to address. As soon as I hit Philadelphia, like I knew I was going to hit the ground running, and I was just a little concerned about that. My last stop before coming to Philadelphia was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and for all the years I lived in Philadelphia, I had never been to Pittsburgh. I still haven't even been back to Pittsburgh. I'm laughing because it's like in the same state, but it seems so far away. It's about a 5-hour drive from Philly, and like I know I could go there, it would be no big deal, but I don't know, for whatever reason, like I don't go to Pittsburgh. But I drove from Columbus to Pittsburgh, and beautiful city. I'll put some pictures on the screen. And I love it there. I highly recommend Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I highly recommend my home city of Philly as well. But Pittsburgh, it has more of a Midwest type of flavor to it. And I just remember really enjoying that city, but also like really feeling in some ways kind of sad because my trip was ending. But in another way, not too sad, because in order to stay organized throughout this whole trip, I was like constantly packing, repacking, hauling stuff. And I will say, by the time I got to Pittsburgh, I was just kind of tired of hauling stuff in and out of the car. I wouldn't take everything out, but I didn't want to leave valuable stuff in the car. And thank you God, like I had a great trip and no issues that way, that I was able to drive across safely. So I'll always be grateful for that. But I remember in Pittsburgh, like I was staying on this like kind of like top of the hill, and it was parking was like a little bit tricky, and then like trying to drag my suitcases out, and then it was like down some narrow stairs. It was just it was kind of the small logistical things, they kind of were adding up over time, and so I was looking forward to just like having a place that I could just land. Okay, this is hard for me to admit on a variety of levels, but I think that it's important to talk about in context of this story. When I got to Pittsburgh, I actually contacted Mr. Catalyst. I sent him just a couple of pictures from the place that I was staying, which was another Airbnb, which I really, really enjoyed. It was a beautiful place to stay, and so I wanted to share that with him, and I sent him a few pictures, and he responded. And I remember it was a Sunday afternoon, and actually he did ask me, he said, well, do you want to talk on the phone? And I said, no, I'm really tired, which I was. And it was an extremely warm day for September, and the air conditioning in the Airbnb was on some type of electronic circuit that wasn't working, so I had messaged the owner just to figure it out. So it was kind of hot, and I was just I just didn't feel like talking, to tell you the truth. So I will give him credit. He did ask like if I wanted to speak on the phone, and I just thought, well, I'll just wait till I get to Philly. And we started messaging back and forth, and it became sexual, and we wound up sexting for the first time. That's not really something I do with people. I'm gonna tell you the truth. This is gonna make me seem, I don't know what, innocent. But I had never sexted with anyone before Mr. Catalyst, and I never have afterwards. I never sent him any nude photos or videos or anything like that, because that's probably a whole other topic. I really don't believe that is a good idea, because those photos and videos could be out there forever. And I guess, text, what you put in writing can too. But I am mostly a writer who expresses myself through writing, and I wasn't planning on sexting with him, but it did happen. And it kind of continued into the next day as well. Like, we were really hot and heavy. And looking back on it now, I wouldn't change anything given what I knew at the time, because I just did not have all the information available that I have today. What I will say is, and I understand, once again, I want to just put this out there, I understand that sexting, sending videos, sending nude pictures, all that is so commonplace today that you're probably watching this video and like yawning, like, okay, well, that's no big deal. But you know what? It is a big deal to me. And I want to stop and take a moment and say, for me, I really value my own sexual energy. Not necessarily because I'm looking for the perfect person or anything like that, but my own energy is really important to me, and it's just not something that I go around sharing randomly with people. And I think right now it would be a good time to say I'm not part of any organized religion, and I'm not part of the New Age, and my apologies because I know I've said that in other videos as well, but I just want to make that clear that it's not for any religious reason. It's just something that's deeply personal to me. However, on the other side, for Mr. Catalyst, I'm pretty sure it was something that he did on a regular basis, and so it wasn't really registering to him as any type of big deal. Now, I could be wrong about that. I don't know. That's just an assumption on my part. So throughout that time in Pittsburgh, I did feel really connected to him, and I remember him asking, well, oh, when are you getting into Philadelphia? And I replied, tomorrow. And he was like, oh, okay. And Pittsburgh was an odd time for me. In one way, I was really enjoying the city. In another way, I could deeply feel, the best way I can put it is this transitional energy where I didn't know what was going to happen on a variety of levels. I kind of thought, you know what I thought? This is a good time to introduce this. I thought, you know what would be so nice, that if I actually wind up connecting with this person and we get along, it would just be nice to share the basics with someone. And I know a lot of times we talk about in the United States these over-the-top things, like these beautiful trips that you're supposed to take with your partner and this and that. And I have to say, I have really always just treasured the everyday basics over the over-the-top trips. And so sometimes I just thought, you know, it would be so nice if I had someone help me bring in the bulk items when I go to Sam's Club, you know, because I'm like, you know, hauling like 40 pounds of cat litter, 40 pounds of water, and I'm always glad I did it, and I'm glad that I have the ability to do it, because I know that some people don't, right? And Mr. Catalyst, to his credit, he was in good shape, he worked out, and I just thought, you know, it'd be nice if on a Friday night after work, right, you go to the Sam's Club and, you know, you load up for the next couple of weeks, and I go on Friday because I don't want to go on the rest of the weekend, just knock it out. And I just thought it'd be nice to have someone go through life with, everyday life like that, where they're helping me with certain things and I'm helping them with certain things, but at the same time there's kind of like this other level connection. And that's the thing that I hold really valuable. It holds true to me, is this, it doesn't really matter like what you're doing, but it's this other level connection that's always been so important to me, but also very elusive here, at least in the United States, for someone like myself. Like it's very rare, you know. I feel like it's more transactional here. Like, what are you going to do for me? Well, what are you going to do for me? And I'm not saying that it's everybody, because I see some great relationships here in Philly, so I'm not I'm not saying it's everybody, but getting back to my point, I just thought, if this really works out between us, it would be nice to be like, hey, you want to hang out, or do you want to do this? Like real, for me, real low-key things, because for me, like the low-key things were like the most important things. Like maybe I could help him with stuff and he could help me, and we would actually have like a real connection. And I think that's, looking back on it, I felt that connection with this person. And that's one of the reasons why it kind of moved me to the physical level. So for me, it was something very deeply personal, but something I just felt moved to do, and I haven't felt moved to do it with anybody else. So, and we'll get into the reasons why that is, because there are specific reasons that I'm not going to discuss now. I remember getting on the turnpike, so driving from Pittsburgh into Philadelphia on September 25th, 2019, and I remember when I drove into Philadelphia, I could feel it. Everything changed between myself and Mr. Catalyst. So it wasn't anything that he did or said or messaged. I literally felt it. And I remember sitting in the car and I just felt everything changed. And so once again, getting back to hot and heavy withdrawal, hot and heavy withdrawal. Except, these withdrawals were not anything, at least initially, especially not this one, that I could put my finger on. I couldn't point to anything. I just knew it. I knew it and I felt it.